Team Awesome is back!
Thank you, Varian. Welcome back to Tangled Talk with Team Awesome. Tonight is episode 25, Rapunzel and the Great Tree. It's also a very special episode because we have a very special guest. Chris Sonnenburg, the executive producer of Tangled, will be joining us at the end of the show for a Q&A.
Woo!
So, good times are being had by all.
We have a lot to talk about.
We do. We have a lot to talk about. Before we get down to the nitty-gritty of the episode, I'd like to take a moment to plug this very podcast. Tangled Talk is now on multiple platforms. So we're going to keep posting on YouTube like we have been the entire time. We have a Twitter account now. We are now on Anchor. We are on Breaker. We are on Pocketcast. As of yesterday, we are on Spotify and Google Podcasts. And iTunes will be coming soon. You can find the links to all of our locations in the description of this episode and future episodes. And if you follow us here and are a member of any or all of those other platforms, feel free to follow us there too. And of course, we're going to continue to upload the episodes onto Tumblr.
Yes, especially follow us on Twitter. I run the Twitter and it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun being able to talk to you guys instead of talking like at you in the podcast. So if you want to talk to us, you can do that on Tumblr or you can do that on Twitter. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Kelsey is very active on the Twitter account and she talks to people constantly. She reblogs things from other people. So it's not just our podcast. There's a lot of interaction going on there. So go ahead, talk to Kelsey there.
It's
talk
fun.
to us on our Tumblrs. You can talk to us. We don't bite. We promise. As of today, which would be March 20th as we record this, the Daytime Emmy Award nominations are out, and Tangled the series, Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, is up for an Daytime Emmy for voice casting, which, I mean, we've got the best cast ever. So considering Tom Caulfield won last year for, The Alchemist Returns, like, we got this.
We good.
I'm confident. Just so you know, the official descriptions of Rapunzeltopia, Lost and Found, and the season 2 finale, Destinies Collide, are now up. And these are like the official ones, not some vague translations or whatever.
Yes.
So I'm going to read these off to you really fast. So Rapunzeltopia, just as we had heard before, Rapunzel finds herself back in Corona as if all the events of the Black Rocks and Varian never happened. Lost and Found is slightly different from the one that we had before, which is Rapunzel and Eugene must traverse a deadly maze, and their guide to the labyrinth is Vigor the Visionary, who...
You guys!
It's a new dream episode. Oh!
Not only is it new dream, but the monkey is the sorcerer.
Yes!
Timothy from the Living Daylights guest stars as Demanitus.
Woo!
So the monkey is Demanitus, guys.
That's amazing. The monkey's a human and it's Demanitus.
Have you guys ever noticed that the Vigor episodes are always new dream episodes?
Yes. Bless.
They always are, even if other people are around, they're new dream episodes.
Yes.
And
Well, that's because New Dream and Vigor were already together originally.
that's true. That's absolutely true.
And they were like, we don't want to throw extra characters
No,
in here.
it's
Except
fine.
sometimes they do. But otherwise.
Except for when they did. And
Sometimes.
for the season 2 finale, Destinies Collide, which will be airing on April 14th, Rapunzel follows the Black Rocks to the Dark Kingdom to uncover the truth behind her destiny. Now, this has been the generic description the entire season, but you know what? At this point, I don't need any more spoilers.
Nope.
Like, seriously, I'm just glad.
Just say this is the finale
God.
and this is when it's on, and that's all you need to know.
But I mean, honestly, made it through the mid-season with all things considered minimal spoilers. I mean, they were pretty heavy spoilers, but they were minimal. Like, I had 2.
Yeah.
They were an important 2, but I only had 2 spoilers. And so not having to dodge spoilers is going to be really nice. So
Send me spoilers.
Shh.
So we've had a couple of people asking us to give our thoughts on Varian in season 2. And so I actually wrote out my thoughts about Varian regarding season 2. The more episodes that pass without him in it, the less likely I think it is that he's going to show up for the rest of season 2. I mean, look at it. We're down to like a handful of episodes. And I honestly think that if we were going to see him at all, we'd have seen him by now. You know? He's not even in the title page of her journal. And sure, he wasn't for season 1 either. But now that she knows who he is and what he's about, you'd think he'd be in the title journal if he was going to be in the season. he is back in Corona getting the help he needs, just as Rapunzel requested, which is evidenced by the fact that he was not on the prison barge. And like that means that I suspect when they get back to Corona in season 3, whenever that is in season 3 they get back, I think he'll be there, but he will be capable of working with them. I have had this headcanon for a while that he's going to have a chip on his shoulder and he's going to be totally unimpressed with them, but he will be at least able to play ball. You know, that it's not going to be this massive, I can't work with you without trying to kill you and your family thing. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm hoping for the she's right dad attitude, because that is my favorite version of Varian possibly in existence. So that's what I'm really hoping for.
I want Varian to be kind of like Zuko almost.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Like season 3 Zuko, they're all still trying to figure out, like, do you still want to kill us? Like, no, I'm good. I don't want to kill you anymore. Okay, if you say so.
I still feel like his alchemy is going to have to combine with Rapunzel's magic to defeat Jantiri in the end. Mm-hmm. Maybe not in a massive way. Maybe he makes her alchemical concoctions or builds her own mecha suit or something. But honestly, I have not dropped the thing about Demanitus building this machine using magic and alchemy combined that got rid of Jantiri's storm in the first place. And so I'm like, that just seemed like the biggest foreshadowing that they could have possibly announced to us, because they already had this alchemy versus magic thing going on that yeah. Mm-hmm. So
and now we freaking get into Manitus. So maybe he goes back to Corona with them and is I'm going to teach you two to work together.
Oh. He's a monkey.
Zontiri butt.
You think he can turn back into the monkey? You think it's a snap of a finger and he's Vigor again?
That would be
Boom!
He's like, I don't want to walk anymore. Eugene, carry me.
Climbs up onto his head.
And Eugene's like, are you serious right now? Really?
But as for season 2, I don't think we're going to see him. Not even in Rapunzeltopia, because the description specifies that she's got short hair and that it's as if the events with the rocks and Varian never happened. So I don't see, without the rocks, she wouldn't have met him. So I just don't think he's going to even be in that episode. I don't think people should be holding on hope for season 2. Jeremy Jordan was confirmed for season 3, so we know he'll be in season 3. That's where we are with that. But now we have this episode that aired on Sunday. This amazing, amazing mid-season that we have not stopped talking about or watching or singing Buddy since the whole thing happened.
I wake up with that song in my head.
Yeah.
And honestly, I will have parts of it in my head throughout the day. I'll have about 3 seconds of it, but a different 3 seconds, but not in order. So
I keep getting the incantation stuck in my head because it fits in with my Tangled and corpse aesthetic. I'm like, death and Tangled? Perfect. I love it.
And then Waiting in the Wings was holy crap. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Cassandra Gotten I Want song. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so getting down to this episode. So, first of all, the Brotherhood is actually mentioned by name multiple times, and this is the first time that we have heard the Brotherhood called the Brotherhood. We learned that word from Ben Balistrieri when he showed us Adira's character designs. Her early designs, he had written Brotherhood on various places. So it's not the Brotherhood of anything in particular, it's just the Brotherhood. And fine, cool. I don't need to be the Brotherhood of anything in particular.
Is it the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood? No, I'm kidding.
I know that we have an alchemist, and I know we have a Brotherhood, and I know we have a walking metal suit thing, but
and we have freaking Hector's his little arm sword. I'm like, that's just Edward's arm sword from Full Metal Alchemist, guys. He still has a full arm, whereas Edward does not. But, I was like, interesting.
It's really interesting that Adira and Hector disagree on so much on matters related to the Brotherhood's purpose. I had gotten asked about this earlier, and I'm absolutely I'm fascinated with this because Adira seems to respect King Edmund as a person, whereas Hector seems to respect him as an authority figure. Mm-hmm. So Edmund said, we have to keep this rock away from everybody. And Hector's like, okay, so that's what we're going to do. And Adira's like, he's dying. We have to go get the sun drop, So she wants to save Edmund and he wants to preserve the law. Or he's just really crazy and we have no idea what's going on in his head because, dude, Hector be crazy. Like,
oh my God, yeah.
Whoa, that dude is like psycho. I can't get over the fact that at the beginning, this is the 25 years ago thing. He's like, oh, the sun drop is a myth. And if you go and find it, if you return to this kingdom, I will kill you whether you found it or not. And I'm
Hector is wild.
Yeah.
He's so intense.
He is. And I love his character design. That is a really cool character design. We know that it looks like Edmund is dying, and Kieran doesn't help by saying that the Brotherhood keeping the opal a secret is his, quote, dying wish. But unless we only see him in flashbacks, he's not dead. Like, you can't think of him as dead. Right now, he's Pavlov's king. He's not dead yet. He's dead and alive at the same time. Because, like, when he was described in the season 2 announcement, he was described as bizarrely charming, and we haven't seen that yet.
He's gonna be fine. I'm sure that he's got Fitz's dad to be. He's gotta be Fitz's dad. He can't die.
But also, like, if Adira is still looking for the sun drop, she has a reason to still be looking for the sun drop.
Yeah.
So, like, if he had up and died, she'd have stopped. You know?
Like, well, I guess I'm gonna go back and get murdered by Hector.
Or just go somewhere else.
No, I know.
You don't have to go all Corona fetch the sun drop.
She could go to Varderos. She could go to the island.
She deserves the island. She needs to go to the island. I would love to see her reaction to the Lorbs. Let's be real. Like, she would be so perplexed.
She'd just, like, flick them. She's like, go away.
No.
Go away. I'm done with you. So, yeah, this episode reveals that it has been 6 months since they left Corona. Thank you for letting us know that, Eugene. I always love it when we get, like, a timestamp on these things.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I have something related to that that's really funny. I was watching it again, and he says something about it being the weekend.
This is what I was going to say.
He calls it Tuesday, and then he says the weekend again. And I'm
Eugene,
like, is the
get a calendar.
Different?
Okay, here's the thing. Like, no. What I think that is that I think that, like, weekend is literally when it is, and Tuesday is just, like, the average thing that happens any old day of the week. But
Eugene
that's yeah. Either that or Tuesday is, like, on the weekend. Like, their weekends are like Monday, Tuesday.
Saying. Like, is their calendar a little different? Like, it's Monday, Tuesday the weekend, or maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. Like,
maybe they have 3-day weekends every week. Maybe it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday every single week.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
They seem like progressive people who would do that. I like it.
Oh my
it's like,
God.
I'm sorry, I'm using the Corona calendar. You know?
It's Monday. It's the weekend. Oh my gosh.
So one of the things I liked, and I noticed this, and a lot of people have noticed this, but I particularly liked that Rapunzel casually mentions that Adira had mentioned the Great Tree to the group, which means that she is popping up when we're not seeing her and just talking to them about stuff. Who knows what all she knows? And by she, I mean Rapunzel, because we don't know what Adira has told her, or if she is just being vague, if Rapunzel knows only a little bit more than the audience, or if she knows a lot more than the audience. But yeah, so I mean, she knew what the Great Tree was before they got to the Great Tree, because Adira had told her at some point.
I just see him sitting around a fire, and then she just pops up. She's like, "Do you want to know about the Great Tree?" And they're like, "What the?"
Eugene just goes, "Ha!
Holy quiet shoes."
For as little as he did, other than a gigantic song number, Lance is really funny in this episode. Him and his karate chop beats scissors or rock or whatever it was. What? Yeah, it was karate chop beats scissors, because Hookfoot was insisting that was paper, and I want to actually see the beginning of that conversation. I want to see them throw rock, paper, scissors, and Lance throws paper, and then he changes it to karate chop so that he can, like, win, because he's a cheater. And where he keeps trying to impress Adira, like, first of all, he's like, oh, by the way, that whole jumping off the cliff thing was my idea, and you can thank me if you want, but you don't have to. You're clearly very busy. And she's like, or like, how about a deer is here, how's my hair? What?
Lance, you
Priority.
don't have any hair, babe.
That's amazing. I love him so much. Like, dang, he's funny with everything he says. He's so great. Even though it hurted, yeah, that's a word. Even though it hurt Cass's feelings, I love Rapunzel declaring that she doesn't need anyone to take care of her and being so confident in her decisions now. I love that. Like, she's really coming into her own. A lot of this episode was about Rapunzel actually taking charge. Like, she is the leader of this quest and everybody else is along for the ride, and she is accepting suggestions, but that doesn't mean she has to listen to them, and she is making her own decisions based on her own impressions. And I loved her standing up for herself in this episode multiple times and in different ways. And I love her, and she's fantastic, and I love her. And she's fantastic. And when they jumped off the cliff, I was absolutely like, I texted Kelsey, I was all like, I'm sorry, Eugene, Rapunzel's the best person in the whole world.
Yep.
Just, it's freaking amazing. Speaking of Rapunzel being the best person in the whole world, like, her reaction to there being a rhino is, like, adorable. She's like, oh, we're getting attacked and we're going to die, but that's fascinating.
And I can't remember who pointed it out on Tumblr, but that they're like, that's a reference to the original.
It was Beth.
Oh, nice, yeah.
That's a reference to the cut line from Mother Knows Best. Go ahead, get trampled by a rhino. Go ahead, get mugged and left for dead.
I always forget that's cut.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's in the soundtrack.
Way more often than you watch the movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know this.
Yeah. It's like,
it's because it's in the soundtrack. So, but yeah, so having him on a rhino that we never see again after that moment was obviously an homage to the song, you know? Him and his freaking bear cats. I'm glad that the crew have named them on Twitter and stuff, because like they don't call them any one thing in the episode. Like there's not a single thing that bear cats are called twice. So it's like I had no idea what they were called until like, oh no, the crew's calling them bear cats. Oh good. I was calling them badger cats for a while. Badgers because they look like badgers, and cats because they sound like cats. So yeah, like big cats, not house cats, obviously.
Yeah.
Hector and his rhino and his bear cats are very cool, but like we said before, he's like crazy, like super crazy, like wow.
He's 0 or he's 100. Like there's no middle ground for Hector.
I'm not sure he's ever 0. He's like 20 or 100.
Yeah.
He's just marginally more controlled than other times. However, the dude is like hysterically funny when he's being a smartass, because like his fight with Cassandra was like funny. Like you never expect anybody to be like to be like so blasé with to Cassandra with a sword. We're so used to people being afraid of Cassandra that having somebody be like absolutely not afraid of her was kind of great.
Yeah.
The caravan. Okay. The caravan can split, which is like I always knew the levers did something, and for some reason that never occurred to me. I've been expecting like wings, like they could jump off the cliff and pull a lever and they'd have wings. Obviously,
if they had wings, they would have used it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, getting over the.
But like obviously they pulled a lever and turned it into a boat at one point. You know, so it's like.
Is it a theatrical representation of a boat?
I can't wait to show you that show, Kelsey. You're going to love it. Unfortunately, I have not seen that Rapunzel in a long time.
Oh, I miss her.
Yes. But, yeah, so the caravan splits in two, and it took me a couple days, but I suddenly realized that Rapunzel and the Vanishing Village, the book, in that book, it says that there were two caravans. And I was like, are they crazy? There's clearly only one caravan. And I'm like, oh my God, Vanishing Village was right. There's two caravans. They just hooked together like a freaking table or something. I don't know. That was amazing. So, ironically, Eugene is afraid of zombies.
I think that's hilarious. I'm like, bro, you are a zombie, technically.
Technically speaking, you died, man.
You died and were resurrected. That is the textbook description of a zombie.
Just because you happen to be a highly functioning, organ-using, blood-pumping, living zombie doesn't mean you're not a zombie, man.
Yeah.
So we got more Jantiri and Demantis info this episode, which was amazing.
We're gonna get even more so freaking soon.
So I the animation for this particular storytelling wasn't as like conceptual as so many of the other ones, but it was still really neat with like the plain colors, and I really enjoyed that. And also like Zantiri's huge, guys. Like he's this giant freaking monster. We need to be scared. Like yeah, because he's like.
I can't wait to see him not in flashback. Like
Yeah.
other animation style. Like I really, really, really hope we get to see him like fully animated. I mean, we saw him coming through that portal in Painter's
but
Block,
that was like
but
mostly...
we haven't seen him like not in shadow. Like
exactly. He's always been like silhouette or shadow or whatever. So we have not seen a good detailed picture of Zantiri yet. And he was like on that clay model, which by the way, I was just thinking the other day that model that was in the spire. I want one. There's another thing Disney needs to sell, another tie-in, even if it's small. I would love a little sculpture of Zantiri. Yes, one of them weird.
If I could get my hands on some clay, I could make you one.
Well, getting your hands on clay is easy. Yeah. I can send you clay.
Yes, but the clay is easy. It's the kiln and maybe some glaze. That's a little harder.
You could use mashed potatoes.
Well, if you use like Sculpey.
Just a little mashed potato.
Do it. Do you want me to pull a Close Encounters, which I hate that movie, but I will do it. I will make it out of mashed potatoes.
Don't get out of mashed potatoes. But no, I mean, you can use like Sculpey in an oven. That works just fine.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
But so we got the return of the healing incantation.
Yeah.
I definitely did. I know Ellie did. I assume Kelsey did. But did you notice that they changed the line from "Let your power to shine" to "Let your powers"?
I did not until Ellie told me.
Yeah, no, I noticed that.
I noticed it on the first viewing, and I'm like, I misheard that. So I went back.
And like, nope.
And then I listened to it again, and I was like, powers? Really? Okay. You guys are supposed to be experts. You're working with the freaking songwriter on this. You should probably know the lyrics. Because I didn't work on the movie. I have seen it 519 times, but like I didn't work on it, and I don't have
here's
control.
The real question.
So, like,
here's the real question. In the demo recording, was it powers multiple, and they changed it to power for the official version? But like, if Alan looks at his notes, does it say powers? You know,
that's fair.
Okay, so that was.
I'm like,
powers. The healing incantation has now appeared. So the healing incantation has now appeared in the series three times.
I love it.
3 times.
See, honestly, the first one I forgot was actually Pascal's story, and then I remembered Pascal's story.
Wait, no, she says it the first time in.
Huh?
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought you said the first time was.
No, I said Pascal's story was the first time. Was the first one I forgot. When
I
said
never mind. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So Eugene and Lance's duet is like, I love it so much. First of all, their voices blend so well. Like they don't have the same voice at all, but they have the same kind of voice, and so. Like Zach and James just sound really good singing together, and they sound like they're having so much fun. And if I believe Zachary Levi, who replied to my Twitter question, they did have so much fun recording that song. And it sounds so good, and every moment of animation just completely obliterates toxic masculinity.
Woo!
Like these two are like the greatest friends, and I love it. And I love that Disney's not afraid to show what good guy friends ought to be like, you know?
And they dance together, and it's so cute. And Eugene takes the woman's position. And
okay, honestly, I totally cool that I did this. Back before the series started, I saw this image from Nerd HQ of Zach being dipped by what's his name, who's also on Chuck. I can't think of his name. But he's being dipped by him.
Is it Captain Awesome?
Yes.
That character? I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name. Anyway, but it was
Ryan something?
somebody in the audience had said how much they liked that scene where the two of them were dancing, and so they recreated it on stage real fast. And so there's a photo of Zach being dipped by him, and I had reblogged that photo and commented, "I want to see Lance do this to Eugene." And so when I saw him dancing, I was like, "Please, God, dip him! Please dip him!" And I was sad. But other than that, I love that song. I've played it on repeat so many times. Yeah, it's just, I mean, and I don't like it better than Waiting in the Wings, but I definitely have it more stuck in my head than Waiting in the Wings. Mm-hmm. Very, very much so. And I've agreed with, I don't know how many people came to this conclusion on their own, but I absolutely agree and came to it on my first viewing, that it is visually very representative of, it's tough to be, not representative, but reminiscent of, it's tough to be a god from the Road to El Dorado. And, with all the bright colors and the weird changing things and popping back to reality and
the two, male leads being kind of loopy.
leads being high on something.
Yeah.
That's true, Bill. They were high on
it was so funny because when I first saw, because I watched that song when it got released in Germany, and I saw it and I immediately thought of you because we have had this conversation before.
So many times.
Man, I wish Lance and Eugene's duet was like, it's tough to be a god from the Road to El Dorado. And I was like, holy crap, they listened to her. I mean,
so
they
did,
I was but they probably saw her talking about that and were like, just you wait, Becky.
Yeah, I was very, very happy with that song. It just made me happy in every conceivable way. We talk about that more later with Chris, so you guys get to hear a little bit of behind the scenes on that, and that's a lot of fun. Let's see. So the reverse incantation, which has been taking the internet by storm. I love that, she's been nicknamed Goth Rapunzel because of all of the Goth Rapunzel edits in the early 2000s.
She's my little demon girl. That's what I've been calling her.
Funny, but I've been calling her Moon Rapunzel, and people call her Goth Rapunzel and Dark Rapunzel, and so we don't have an official fandom consensus name that we call her, but man, the fan art has been non-stop, and it's so great. In fact, I have one that I need to finish up and post, and I could call it done now and post it. I just want to take another look at it and see if there's anything that needs editing first. But I mean, that was so impactful. Here's the thing, guys, is that the things I was spoiled on was, first I was spoiled on the image of her with the black hair and eyes, and then I was spoiled on the fact that there is a moon song and that it killed things. But I refused to listen to it. I'm like, no, I'm gonna have something about this be a surprise.
I did,
and it is so haunting. Well, you have no patience.
Shut up.
I'm like, no, I wanted to not be spoiled, and so I didn't listen to it. But it's so haunting and beautiful, and and creepy, and I really love it.
I was not lying in my post that said I'm gonna sing it to every corpse I work on. There was one person who just replied, Jesus, and I'm like, but you also liked it, so are you horrified or do you agree with me? I don't know. It just was really funny. And then there was one person who was like, I really like this, and I was like, well, thank you. I do too.
But just as a side note, guys, it is officially called Reverse Incantation. It's not called Wither and Decay. It's not called Moon Incantation. It is
Hurt Incantation. A lot of people
I
have been
called
calling
it Destruction Incantation because that sounds really cool. But I did not know it was officially named the Reverse Incantation at that point.
Well, that's fine. And then, but yeah, so it's just clearing up records. It is called the Reverse Incantation. It's got an official name. And I have pet peeves, so I'm going to bring that up. So Demon Pascal, Max's hallucination of Demon Pascal, cracked me up.
He's so cute.
I can't stand how adorable that is. That little.
Why are there so many cute demons in this show?
Max, what a weird thing to hallucinate. Do you even have? I guess he's got some sense of Christian mythos in his brain because he can picture a demon or a devil more specifically. But yeah, so then they get through all that crap. No, that was the most amazing part of the entire episode. Actually,
how dare you call it crap?
I would say the middle quarter of it is the most amazing part of the entire. I mean, from Buddy through Waiting in the Wings. Mm-hmm. No, it just gets good from here on out. That's starting at Buddy is just amazing all the way to the end.
And it's so funny because like the Buddy song happens and then the reverse incantation.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck?
It's a roller coaster. You're like up, down, up.
And then like Adira like body checks Rapunzel. Then Adira body checks Rapunzel into like the pond and she snaps out of it, and then like the ceiling falls through and completely Eugene is like, Rapunzel!
What's
up?
Boom.
Yeah. He's just like, hey babe, how you doing?
Like, oh my gosh.
Accurate stone description, Eugene. Good job.
That was just so amazing. Like, and the fact that they like had this great song and then like this Pascal saving the freaking day. Like, oh my gosh. Pascal did so many small things to save the day in this episode. Mm-hmm. Like, he was eyes so that Cassandra didn't fall into the crevice. And then he like figured out to get Max to run in a circle around the plant so that it would fall through the floor, and then they, get out of that situation. And so he just kept saving everybody. But so it cuts to that, and then it cuts back to Rapunzel, who's like crying as she chants this incantation, and then Adira body checking her. And then the flower falls through the ceiling, and then it goes back to the humor because they're still high. So that was hysterically funny and dramatic, and then funny, and then dramatic, and like, oh my gosh, that was. I love that little bit right there. Just the whiplash was amazing.
Like, I don't know how to feel right now.
Pretty much. So then they get to where they're going to camp out for the evening, and Rapunzel has to lay down the law with Cassandra, which I loved because, as you may recall, at the end of Queen for a Day, she's like, I'm not sure I want to be queen anymore. Like, she's not at all positive that she can do this because, of the decisions she had to make. And now she's just coming into her own. And it's amazing how when she is not kept in a pot, in a tower, she's allowed to grow. And she does grow. And so, yeah, so her just taking charge and not letting Cass's insecurities taint her leadership was really great. It was so great. And then everybody was like so shocked by, and it wasn't, it was an outburst. It was, but it was a controlled outburst, and Lance little hand over his mouth. It was,
oh my God.
That was so great.
Yeah.
So then we have like the flashback, but like all of a sudden we are short-haired Rapunzel again.
Oh, so good.
And this was like, a few days after we got the description of Rapunzeltopia, where we're like, she's going to be brunette in that. And we're like, oh my God, so much brunette Rapunzel. This is amazing. I wasn't expecting this. So that was amazing. And I love seeing her. This was literally like days after coming back to the castle, So this is before she's even really comfortable with Cassandra yet. And it's just like, I love seeing early days stuff. That was super great and unexpected and wonderful. And I loved it. Mm-hmm. And then, her and Eugene having their little heart-to-heart, and I love that they still find ways and places to do heart-to-hearts. Mm-hmm. And Eugene being, after his, sarcastic remark, which he's required to do because he is Eugene, but him outright suggesting that she go talk to Cassandra, It's like, this is bothering you, go talk to her, So she goes over and she apologizes, she acknowledges that, I'm sorry it got that way, but she stands her ground. I am going to be queen one day, and you're not always going to agree with what I decide, but I'm going to be queen one day. You have to listen to me. And then she called Cass her sister, which is like the best.
Yes.
So cute.
Like, I've always thought that Rapunzel probably wanted siblings because she'd have someone to play with. And now she's like, I might be an adult, but I have siblings finally,
Yeah. Poor baby.
It's so great. And so, so then we have the third song of the ep, and I love how, like, Chris and the crew were all like, there's going to be 2 new songs this episode. 3 new songs this episode. They kept a lid on that incantation, man.
That was awesome.
So, like, seriously, Waiting in the Wings is so good. Like, I listened to it, and I'm like, this doesn't even have to be related to Tangled at all. Like, Eden can just stick this on her next album. Yes. It is so good, and it's just this power ballad, and I love it. And it is really unleashing Eden Espinosa's voice for the first time in the series. Like, Clever Bee didn't really do it. View from Up Here didn't really do it, you know? So this was her moment, and this was amazing.
This is her. Oh, I totally understand that she played Elphaba and Wicked at one point. Yeah. Oh, I see it now.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Oh, I get where everything else was me.
I wasn't doubting her beforehand, but then I was just like, oh, yeah. It would have been a literal crime if she hadn't played Elphaba at some point.
Yeah.
With a voice like that. Like,
absolutely.
Damn.
And so, so congrats to Alan Menken and Glenn Slater for writing this amazing I Want song. Like, that was fabulous. This was so great to hear. So then we have, like, a 0.3 seconds of Eugene and Rapunzel sleeping next to each other, but, like, that's amazing.
Bless it.
We made it. We made it, you dream shippers. We're here.
They always put them so far apart.
We got the OTP sleeping next to each other.
On each other.
They're on each other. Yep. It's what we've always wanted.
Always wanted, and it's canon now. It happened.
We did it.
We did it.
Looks like we made it.
Okay, so then, while everybody else is snoozing, Hector shows up again and starts fighting Cass. And actually, he just threw Cass across the room, and she hit her head and
Cass did
was
the same
passed
thing
out for a while.
But
honestly, the sword fight between Hector and Adira was like the best fight scene they have ever animated. Like, that was the most amazing bit of fighting animation they have ever done. Like, I don't know if it's because of Disney restrictions or what's going on, but often the staging for the fight scenes is a little bit blocky and choppy, and it's just. But this was so fluid and so dramatic and such big gestures. They poured their hearts and souls into this fight scene, and you can tell. And it was also kind of terrifying as the audience to see somebody who was more skilled than Adira, Because it's like, so far, all she's done is, like, refuse to fight and dodge and weave and, like, only pull out her sword when she, like, wants to have a little bit of fun and take out 3 goons at once. But, like, even with Hector, she tried to start by not fighting. She tried to start by doing her dodging, her Tai Chi dodging thing. And it wasn't working out, so she had to pull out the sword. And then he defeated her and went after Rapunzel. And the way Eugene was holding Rapunzel when Hector goes after her is just like, oh, man.
He was ready. Man. He was so ready. He was like, oh, you want to go? You want to hurt my woman? Oh.
But then he didn't have to be, because then Cassandra showed up.
Yay, thanks, Cass.
Then Cass and Hector started fighting, and then Cass literally threw him off a cliff. Like, honestly, yeah, there were vines, and yeah, he survived, but for all intents and purposes, she would have killed him. The intent was death. She tried to kill him.
No, he was going to survive that.
Hector fell off that cliff twice.
Like, dead.
She I mean, honestly, she threw him off a cliff. she killed him, and in her mind, she killed him, and she was fine with that. So that was.
I guess he's dead now. Bye.
Oh my god.
So you can see how absolutely skewed Hector has gotten in his own crazy ass mind, because he somehow thinks that King Edmund would have approved of releasing Zontiri in order to protect the stone. So he's crazy.
I really don't think Ed would have done that. I just don't think he would.
Don't think
I would have.
I would have decided that. Perfect.
I'm like, Zontiri? Heck yeah! Just pull the spear out.
No. Woo! Show us Godipus!
Yes!
So, so considering Hector survived all of this, we might see him again. And if he's in the Dark Kingdom, I want to hear his talking to.
Yeah.
I want Edmund has to say to him, like, excuse me, so I just read in the paper that Zontiri was released and that it's your fault. So
I just read in the paper.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I will admit that I had for like 5 seconds really strong Tafiti vibes from like this heart turning bright green and glowing and whatnot.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yay, Tafiti, woo, wait, no, you're the bad tree. You're the bad tree.
Bad tree.
And I really liked when Hector was taken over, how first of all, he tried to fight the vines. Like he somehow did not think that the tree would try to get him, So he tried to fight off the vines with that really badass spear that Demanitus invented or enchanted.
Nope.
And
you mean the spear that Vigor the Visionary made?
That's what I mean.
That's so exciting. Sorry, I can't get over that.
It's hysterically funny and totally awesome. I was suddenly thinking about all the images we've seen of Demanitus and how his face is kind of shadowed. Mm-hmm. And what if he sort of looks like Vigor the entire time?
He's
like Vigor with a mask on, guys.
Dude, like, he looks... Oh my god. He's hilarious.
It wasn't in the realm of possibilities. Like, it wasn't in the realm of things I thought would happen in this stupid show. And then they made the monkey a sorcerer, and
honestly, can't deal with it. Kelsey, as soon as I read that, the very first thought I had was, this sounds like something Kelsey would make. Like,
yes! It's canon!
You read that, and you're like, Kelsey edited this on Google. She's the one who put that there. Because that cannot be real!
I'm gonna be right.
This is a giant prank by Kelsey. On April 1st, she's going to be like, April Fool! That's not how the episode goes! Boom! So Hector's sitting here, and he's just, like, attacking freaking everyone. And, like, but oddly, I noticed that Hector does, first, at the 25 years ago, Hector does not believe in the sun drop. He says it's a myth. And then later on, he's like, okay, well, if Rapunzel is quote unquote the sun drop, then I guess I better kill her. But then once he was the tree, she's the one person he didn't attack, which makes you wonder if she's the one person Zontiri didn't attack. Because I keep being all like, Zontiri wants Rapunzel, because like, I think that she's being the key to his demise. He's like, well, if I could do something about that. First he tried to like brainwash her into like painting the tree for him, and then he's like, I'm not going to attack her because I could probably use her. So I still have like Ontario wants Rapunzel theories going around in my head.
I hope so.
But then here's the thing, is the first time when she's singing the incantation and she's just trying it out, like the death and decay spreads away from her and she's the central point of it, and it just spreads out from her. But when she wraps her hair around the tree and sings it again, it is sucking the life out of the tree. So it's like this death thing works in two directions. And that's like creepy. Like seriously, the fact that poor Rapunzel has this power and that she can't control it. The first time she sings it, she's crying because she can't control it and she can't stop. And then the second time she can snap out of it long enough to tell people to get out of here because she can't control it. So then, of course, we have, Cass grabbing her arm and burning her hand, and now it's all withered and burned, and, like, we don't know what will come of that.
Withered and decayed?
Hey! Hey-o!
But we don't know if, like, that's going to get worse. Like, is that going to be, like, an ongoing problem that it's slowly spreading up her arm or something? And somebody had made an observation to me that Cass getting burned by Rapunzel is also like symbolic of somebody being emotionally burned by their friend, which Cassandra was feeling, to which I replied, and if it spreads, then that is like when you start resenting your friend and and the bad feelings and bad thoughts spread in your head. So
my heart.
This whole Cassandra's arm thing might be a giant deadly metaphor. So so I think at this point in the game, I think that at some point Rapunzel's going to get her healing back, and that's going to be the only way to save Cassandra and her arm. Like,
and Eugene, because he's definitely going to die again.
And Eugene, because he's definitely going to die again.
Sorry,
oh my god!
Like, honestly,
I love him, but I want him to die so bad.
The conversation about Eugene potentially dying has been phenomenal. It's been so much fun to be reading up on it. It's been so much fun to see people freaking out and seeing people like adding on to it and just making it worse and worse. And it's wonderful, and I love it.
I just love that the majority of us are like, just kill him. Just please kill him.
Just off him, just a little bit.
There are those few people who are like, what do you mean? I don't want Eugene to die. And we're like, no. We don't want him to die forever. We just want him to be resurrected again.
Well, I just love how the mid-season was so intense, and now we're like, wow, that was intense. Hey, what if Eugene dies? Like, we were just like immediately on to the next thing.
We're like, wow, it can get this intense. It could get even worse.
So let's see. So we have the true power of the reverse incantation is absolutely intense. I mean, it's crazy. And Lance carrying Eugene is adorable and wonderful, and just more of that.
We are taking toxic masculinity down.
Yes,
it's
and
beautiful.
Just like how Eugene's suffering is the driving force between what Rapunzel does in that entire scene is just it's so good.
Eugene crying out in pain makes her go, okay, I got to put a stop to this, and him crying out in pain louder makes her go, sorry, Cass, I have to do this.
Yeah,
she will not let him suffer. She will not let him die again.
Yep.
Which, so when he dies again, it's going to be even better because she won't let it happen. So then she has to have. What if she's the one to do it? I mean, with these,
oh my God. I want
crazy.
Rapunzel to kill Eugene with the reverse incantation so bad. I want that so badly. I want her to not be able to control it. Like maybe she's under the control of Zontiri and he gets her to do it, and Eugene's just dying and all sad and terrible, and then Zontiri snaps her out of it, and she's just like, oh god,
my god,
she can't even talk, she just breaks down.
Please,
if that doesn't happen, I'll write it.
Yeah, absolutely,
because holy nonsense, that would be painful.
It would be so good.
Yeah.
So the last thing that Hector says to Rapunzel is that if she goes to the Dark Kingdom, then she's doomed. And so, I mean, first of all, he's crazy. But second of all, why?
Why?
What will happen?
You have to explain this more. I'm so tired of more questions than answers.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Come on, Hector. We want spoilers. Tell us.
I'm like, no. Keep going.
Just one more.
Please.
And then he survived that fall again, and so did Adira. And okay, honestly, Adira swan diving off the cliff after him was amazing.
It's so graceful.
Oh. If only Lance
but here's
he would have been like, ah.
He would have. It would have been amazing. But honestly, first of all, she's got the spear now. I assume that what she wanted to do was go down there and shove the spear back into the heart, lock it back up.
Mm-hmm.
That's her goal.
Or maybe she's a disciple of Zontiri, and she needed the spear so he could be back.
I'm in.
I've had a lot of people asking me, so do I trust Adira? You're like, so we know more about her now. Do you trust her? And my answer is actually the same as it has been the entire time we've known her, which is I think she's on her own side. I think that as it currently stands, helping Rapunzel and the group serves her purpose. But that if she needed to do something that was against them, for example, sacrifice Rapunzel, she'd do it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's why she's doomed in the Dark Kingdom, because maybe once she's there, maybe what she has to do would end up killing her, which, as you may recall, is one of Rapunzel's biggest fears right now, is that she won't make it back from this mission she's on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I wonder if because Adira is really, really, I can't think of words. She is really
curious, enigmatic.
I'm trying to say she's really loyal to Edmund. There we go.
Yes. Yes.
I was trying to think of a fancier word, but loyal works just fine. But she's really loyal to Edmund. And last time we saw Edmund, he's kind of dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's been 25 years, but maybe he's just in this constant state of dying.
Yeah, I was wondering.
He's, as I like to call, half corpse. But maybe
I was wondering.
Yeah. But maybe to get him
Half
out
corpse
of said
state, yeah.
half corpse state, they have to use the power of the sun drop to save him, but that would end up killing Rapunzel. But Adira is way more loyal to Edmund than she is to Rapunzel, so she might be like, well,
Okay.
I have to save my king.
No, I'm liking this. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. And I'm liking this because in order to save Ariana, Frederick killed the flower.
So it's another like, I want to save my royal. I'm gonna kill the flower.
Yeah.
But this time the flower is a person.
Eugene's like, oh hell no.
Especially
Okay. So this is the case. Okay.
The plot. And he's also prince, like,
exactly.
God.
I was like, okay, remember how we were saying that maybe he's the Dark Prince, but he like rejects his heritage?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he rejects his heritage.
Yeah, maybe he's kind of with it at first, but then Adir's like, well, we have to save your father. And he's like, well, I want to save my father. And they're like, but we have to kill your girlfriend. And he's like, oh!
Hold on.
God, for all I care. You can't hurt my woman.
Hey, old man, nice knowing you. See you later. What's in the will, you know?
He takes the crown off. He's like, all right.
Or maybe, okay, here's another thought. The sun drop is the only way to save him, but Rapunzel also has the power of death now. Dying is better than half dying. Mm-hmm. Like, ending it is better than letting it be a constant state of being.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, not that I think that they would have assisted suicide on Tangled, but...
wow.
Really, really proud of them if they did. Because, oh my God.
I just don't think that's going to happen. But it's an interesting thought. Here's the thing.
No one can agree on it.
So one of the things that I've been doing lately is I've been going through all of my old posts I started at the beginning of my blog, and I have been untagging things that have been tagged as spoilers since the blog began. So I'm backtracking and I'm catching up on all this stuff. And as of today, I got to Beyond the Corona Walls. So I'm finally to the beginning of season 2. And now I'm just piling more and more spoilers tags onto it. Mm-hmm. But while I was there, when we got to Beyond the Corona Walls, I had made this post that I said, guys, this is so dramatic. This is like fanfic dramatic. And I'm like, you know what? Rapunzel and the Great Tree is also fanfic dramatic, and all of these theories we're coming up with are also fanfic dramatic. And so these are like amazing things and amazing AUs and interesting paths things could take that, like, if they don't take, someone's got to write it, even if it's us. So, So then we end this very cool episode with Cassandra in her brand new shiny armor.
Yes.
Woo! That's incredible and very cool. And no wonder she didn't get a new outfit for season 2 if she's just waiting for the mid-season to get her armor. I also
had it waiting in the wings.
Hey-o!
Oh, I am so punny tonight. I love it.
But one of the things I wonder with the armor is that because it is full armor, I wonder, going back to the hand thing, I wonder if it's going to spread under the armor where no one can see it.
Ooh. So, like, Cass, every time she shares a room with Rapunzel, but I can see her deliberately being like, get out, I want to change, you know? And I'll be like, oh, okay, sure, no problem, I'll go spend time with Eugene. And so I wonder if, like, Cass will be aware that this thing is getting worse and she'll hide it from everybody. Like, because a lot of the point of this episode is that Cassandra is hiding things from people and has been. Like, she's been hiding her emotions. She talks about how she's constantly hiding her emotions, you know? I pretend it sting, but it stings. And so...
And then she's like, I'm fine. And I'm like, oh, me.
And she's like, yeah, like gritting her teeth saying she's fine, and Rapunzel's like, oh, but you're hurt. She's like, I said I was fine. And she's like, yelled at her because she's like, you know, Cass does not want to... She doesn't want to admit her weaknesses. And so, like, I don't see her letting other people in about the state of her arm. So I think she's going to allow this to be a worse and worse problem until there's literally nothing we can do about it. Like, until it starts creeping up the side of her neck or something, you know? So, and pokes out from under the armor so everybody can see it. So, yeah. Those are my thoughts on Cassandra's armor. And now we can talk about the score at the end of the credits.
It's so good. That whole scene is just, like, everything is just so subtle, but it's so good put together. Like, when she, like, brushes the rock off with her foot and just, oh my gosh.
It's just, like, honestly, for such a minor thing, I got really emotional about that. You know? And this is just, like, Rapunzel having this moment of clarity of, I'm going to finish what I started, you know? Like, I've been told that this is like the most dangerous thing I could possibly do, but I got to see it through to the end because this is what I'm doing.
Yep.
And then everybody backing her up, and it's just like beautiful.
It was so good.
It's so good. This was oh man. And to think in the next episode they're going to go to a concert.
It's because Rapunzel needs a break. She's like, we just need to go to a concert and chill out for a little bit.
Only in the description, and that it's like, oh, Rapunzel's like, we've been through a lot. Let's go to a concert. Hookfoot's in town, or Rookham's in town. So, like, I'm actually, honestly, the other day I was listening to Tangled, the original soundtrack, and I've Got a Dream, and I'm like, I miss Hookhand. I'm really excited that we're about to see Hookhand.
Yeah.
Oh, we actually get to see one of the OGs. This is great. So, yeah, this is going to be fun. Also, considering you have Rapunzel just called Cassandra her sister, and Eugene has previously called Lance his brother, it's going to be interesting to see actual blood sibling dynamic on this show, and to see if there's any sort of parallel action between the surrogate siblings. So, I'm, it was intense, but I'm also looking forward to something a little more lighthearted, especially because the second episode on Sunday is going to be Rapunzel Day 1, which is, the one where she wakes up with amnesia or whatever, or however it is that she gets amnesia. I'm all excited about that. So this is going to be a fun weekend coming up, these 2 episodes, and I'm so happy to not be worrying about spoilers at this point.
Oh, I know.
I'm just like, thank God I'm not dodging spoilers anymore. After I saw the episode, I took off all of my blacklisted tags. Just saw everything.
Open the world. You're like, yes.
I'm like, I can read it all again. I don't have to be afraid anymore.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a very good episode. And now we are going to have a conversation with our very special guest, Chris Sonnenburg.
Yay! Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on.
Welcome to Tangled Talk, Chris. You are officially a member of Team Awesome now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. What an honor.
It is an honor.
I just had a rush of cold chills go over me. I'm so honored. Thank you.
Welcome. Absolutely.
I just want to say before we go on how much I myself and everybody at the production just appreciates not only the podcast, but each of you individually for being such huge supporters and fans of the show since from the very beginning. I mean, you guys have been here since we announced that we were going to make the show, and
it's been a long time.
And you guys were kind of some of the first nerves I had on the show, understanding that people actually wanted this show and that we had to make it special for you guys. I mean, at the end of the day, we really do. You guys know, and you've talked about it at length in the past, that not only is this made for the fans, but it's made by the fans. I want to go on record as saying that there's a lot of very devoted Tangled fans, not only watching and then listening to your podcast, but making the show. We have a very devoted and loyal crew to the show. We love them, and you guys are part of that, so it's a lot of fun. Thank you guys for being
thank you
for so long. I'm so glad that
we're grandmas, man.
We're Tangled grannies.
Yeah, I will say, Chris, that Ellie and I, well, we were the ones who composed that letter that we sent off to you. Kelsey has been in the fandom the same length of time. She just wasn't part of the specific head of the Tangled fandom resurrection, but she's been along for the ride the entire time. She's one of those people who never left. So yeah, she's been Ellie's friend longer than anybody else. Ellie's oldest friend is Kelsey, and then she and I became really good friends during the course of the series, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
So,
well, I got it. Thank you to all 3 of you, and again, pleasure to be here, and anxious to answer some questions and talk about whatever you guys wanna try and pump out of me here.
Okay, well, before we start on any of the questions that we have gotten, because we did ask on both Twitter and Tumblr if people could ask anything of the crew that wasn't a spoiler, what would they ask them? And most people didn't question that we were asking this question. But we did get a list of
one person on Twitter who was like,
trying to figure out why you want this information.
We've been very secretive. We're like, we're not telling you, but it's special.
So we are going to have specific people's questions answered, or at least we're going to ask specific people's questions. But before we start on the actual Q&A part, I just wanted to know if you had anything in particular you wanted to say about the midseason, because I mean, this was
holy crap,
mind-blowing episode, you know, and we've been talking about it nonstop since Saturday night when it dropped on the East Coast on DirecTV. So is there anything in particular you want to talk about regarding the midseason?
Yeah, it's so funny. I watched, I don't know who runs that Rabbit channel, but I get in there every Sunday night just to kind of watch the fans experience it as it rolls out. And that was a real treat to kind of knowing what was coming, watching everybody experience it live was really fun. I will just, I'll say that, of course, Cassandra's one of my favorite characters. I cast Eden Espinosa as this character, particularly and specifically for this episode, and particularly for Waiting in the Wings. We didn't have that song necessarily written, but I knew that we were going to have this moment for her. And I've told this story to Eden multiple times, because every time I see her, I feel like I have to tell her again. But I remember in the very beginning, we were casting the character, and I knew that I wanted a character that had some, a little bit of age on Mandy, at least in the voice, and sounded very kind of street smart and sounded a little tougher. And the casting department in the very beginning were definitely trying to give us younger female actresses from the channel. We had a few names that they were trying to promote on the channel, and nobody really had that depth to her voice. And I think one day they gave me a few options, and I found a YouTube video of Eden singing "Once Upon a Time" from Brooklyn, and it's an amazing piece of music. If you Cassandra fans want a treat, look up "Once Upon a Time" by Eden Espinosa. She sings this amazing song, and when I heard that, I immediately pointed at my screen and said, "There's Cassandra. There's my girl." This amazing character that I knew was going to be special, and we cast her specifically for this song. So when it came to writing it and recording it, and then every step of the way boarding it and the animation, I was very particular about how that was all treated, and it just came out phenomenal. So watching that sequence and seeing Eden kind of come out of her shell. I mean, I had a lot of people along the way say, like, when is Eden going to sing? And why don't you have her sing? Being very, like, very, impatient, because I feel like some of the fans really knew that she was quite the singer and had this canon of a voice. But, I always say, like, timing is everything. You just have to, I didn't even really want her to sing in Ready As I'll Ever Be. I didn't want her to sing at all until this moment. We had some opportunity for her to sing, along the way, and it was fun to have her do that. But I was very particular with Alan Menken and Glenn Slater, who write our songs, that I said, okay, we can do that, but you got to just keep her. You just got to keep her as a support piece. You can't have her sing. We can't write something big for her, because I knew I wanted this to be her shining moment. And of course, we did do that, and that was my favorite part of this past episode. I know there was a lot of drama, and there was a lot of fun and romantic romance and comedy and adventure and everything, but that moment for me, for Cassandra, was the moment that I was waiting for everybody to finally get an earful of Eden. She's just an amazing performer.
She really is. And I've actually been talking with one of the animators at Mercury. He messaged me randomly, and we've been chit-chatting back and forth. And so after this episode came out, immediately I got the message, so I know you got spoilers, but was the episode ruined for you? And I'm like, no, the episode wasn't ruined for me. But he actually, one of the things he animated was a bit in Waiting in the Wings. And he was telling me that there was a lot of research done watching Disney animated musical songs and just watching the actions that were done there, and that they even used they put homages to different characters in different movies doing different body language for their specific moments. So it's like they were particularly in charge of the whole "but it stings" bit. Yeah. And so if you notice, Cassandra's got the bit where she clutches her fist to her chest and she throws her head back, and that was specifically an homage to Ariel in Part of Good.
Oh, yes!
And that was a deliberate action right there. And so knowing that, fantastic. It makes me want to actually go just rewatch it and see if I can find more, because that's like a revelation. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's stuff we're not even seeing because we don't know what the animators were intending when they did this. So
and I think that really goes for the entire series. I don't think, by and large, even as we talk about Annie nominations or discussions or anything, I legitimately don't think that Mercury Filmworks gets nearly enough attention or credit for the work that they put into this show. When I say that we have a lot of dedicated fans on the crew in Burbank, that goes doubly for the crew in Ottawa. We have an amazing animation team. Maybe some of your fans may not know that we have a team in Ottawa. It's an animation company called Mercury Filmworks, and it's made up of some of the best animators, television animators, and even feature animators in the world. I mean, these guys push the limits of what this program and what television stands for in animation, just in some of the subtlety and just eye movements and mouth shapes and little bits of movements that really accentuate the performances that we put into the storyboards, that really make these moments, these dramatic moments, the romantic moments, the action moments. They always put 110% into their sequences, and they are so meticulous. And there's often times where I don't even catch certain things that they're pulling from either our feature, from Tangled the feature, or like you're saying, other Disney films. They're lovers of animation, and that is definitely the type of team and artist that I was looking for when we again started even developing the show. I knew I wanted to, there were definitely moments in the show along the way that we had conceived as being very subtle and very very realistic, and a lot of that dictated the designs as we were designing the characters, and certainly as we were picking a studio for the animation. We were looking at a studio, studios that could really pull off that subtlety, and Mercury they deliver every single week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They absolutely do. One of the things I will say that one of my favorite posts recently is after Peril on the High Seas aired, somebody did a GIF comparison of Lady Kane in Tangled Before Ever After and Lady Kane in Peril on the High Seas. And just like, sure, while you're watching the series, we are acknowledging that the animation is getting better, but when you compare something that happened at the very beginning to something that happened currently, you're like, oh my God, they have gotten so much better over the course of this series. And we've still got, the rest of season 2 and all of season 3 to go. And I know it's just going to get better and better the farther we get along. So Mercury, I am like gobsmacked by how good Mercury is, and I am so grateful that you found them to be the people who helped us along.
I am so lucky to have been able to secure them as our studio. We just had a launch with them this morning on an episode, and I was talking to the team and just expressing how much how beautiful the mid-season was, and the feedback that we've been getting from the fans. And again, just watching, of course, I've been showing people that don't necessarily watch the show, but showing them the, Waiting in the Wings, and people are just look at me like, this is a television show? Like, this isn't a feature? Like, it really is on par with some of the stuff that we pulled off, even in the 90s, feature animation was doing. So big kudos to them.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, then I suppose if that's the big thing you want to talk about, we have a list of questions to ask you from both ourselves and the fans.
Line them up.
Okay, so the very, very basic that everybody wants to know. I mean, I don't need to ask you your favorite character. You already said who your favorite character was. We already know who your favorite character is. But is Waiting in the Wings your favorite song that has been in the series so far then?
So far, yes. It is, of course. It was one of the very again, conceptually, it was one of the first songs that I knew I wanted to make. We didn't actually write it until we had a script ready, and then we were talking over a year ago when we actually recorded it. But yeah, that certainly was the one I was the most. As a matter of fact, I can actually tell you that we had a whole different song. Alan actually wrote an entirely different song for that moment. And as much as I loved it, and as much as I, and as hard as it was to be able to write Alan Menken back and have them redo the song, it just wasn't. It just wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't something that I felt had the emotional pull. And so that actually is the second version of that song that they wrote for us. Because again, I had such a specific idea in my head of what I wanted. Going back and forth was really necessary. And then even as we went forward, having Eden involved in some of the calling some of the takes, but certainly, Jeremy's Varian song was a big one, obviously, and the reprise was something that I wanted very particularly recorded and handled in a very specific way. I knew exactly what I wanted out of that, and Jeremy and I went back and forth on both the main song and his reprise about how to handle the emotion. He had very particular ideas about how he wanted to treat the character. It's always so nice when you have a voice actor who obviously that can sing and perform as well as Jeremy does, but also has a very specific opinion about how the song is treated from his character's point of view. He really embodied that character very early. He really fleshed out Varian from a character standpoint, and having him involved in the production of the song was both of those versions was really important, and ultimately made its way into the final.
Very cool. Very cool.
Awesome.
Okay, so speaking of songs, when Rapunzel is singing the reverse incantation the second time and she's drawing the life from the tree, of course you don't have to answer this if this is spoilers, Eugene falls and he loses consciousness. And so we've been going back and forth on Tumblr. Is he being affected by the song because the sun drops is what brought him back to life, or did he faint because he was squeezed too hard by the tree and then he fell and lost consciousness?
I would not read too much into that. We needed a way to get Eugene out of the tree without, because obviously if Eugene was conscious, there would be no way that he would leave her there. So we had to get him in a position where Lance, took him out under the direct orders of Rapunzel. So the easiest way to do that was to just get him unconscious. I don't think it was necessarily in any was not in any way related to any of the mythology. It was purely mechanical, just to be able to get him out of the situation so that Cassandra and Rapunzel and Adira were the only ones that could hear the information that Hector was giving them. And then ultimately the moment between Rapunzel and Cassandra was so important that we didn't really want anybody else to be around for that. It was just too special.
Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
We had to get rid of him, so we heard him. I love it.
I mean, if you think about it, if Eugene was conscious in any way, he would never have left.
Yeah,
he wouldn't have
exactly.
he wouldn't have left.
He would be in Cassandra's place. He'd have a burnt hand.
I mean, believe me, we went through, none of this stuff is by accident. Obviously, in animation, you plan everything out very methodically, and especially in script form, we go through these moments letter by letter, finding out the best way to kind of amp up the drama, but also be able to get the information across to people as clearly as possible for what they need in the future. So we're parsing that stuff out and making sure that everybody has the information that they need to be able to do the actions that they need to do.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
So do you find yourselves, you guys as the crew as a whole, do you find yourselves grinning and kind of laughing with each other when the fans come up with a theory that is correct or that is really close to something that you have planned. Like, for example, during the hiatus, a lot of people were theorizing, the original hiatus between seasons 1 and 2. A lot of people were theorizing that Varian was going to team up with the other villains and break out of prison. But you all knew that Peril on the High Seas was on the horizon. So were you like, they have us half figured out, but not all the way. They'll never see this coming.
No, not really. we conceptualize and kind of pull these things off. Pretty much in a vacuum. We don't really, as much as I'm sure everybody would love to say that we hover around the theories, but the theories I think just kind of get in the way for us. They just kind of, we tend to not let those affect the writer's room or how we pull things off or how we approach any particular thing. Again, this story has been written for, again, going on 4 years here, so there's very little in the general terms that can be affected. There's certainly things and details that can be affected, but a lot of the things that we come up with, I hate to be so clinical about it, but are just kind of mechanical. Like if we need to have an episode, a lot. So maybe something to kind of hit on, because I think might be interesting to people to know, as Rapunzel was leaving Corona and going towards her destiny along the Black Rock path, the original concept, again, way back in development, was for her to visit a new town every episode along the way. So we were going to have, again, close to maybe 15 different locations along the way, just because I thought, it would be really interesting for a girl who had been in a tower for so long to actually see the world, different kinds of places, cities, towns, vistas, oceans, islands. Like we had a whole bunch of different things we wanted to do, but logistically, creating all of those locations is we just can't do it. We just can't create all of those. What we do is we create locations so that we can reuse them over a certain amount of episodes. So we broke the season up into these little bite-sized portions so that we could spend some time in Varderos, we could spend some time on the island, and that way we could reuse backgrounds and not break the backs of like our design team and our layout team and our color team. And everybody has a certain amount of work that they have to do per episode. So if we were to like dump all on their back all of these different locations, it was unmanageable. So a lot of times when we're doing something like for instance, the ship, it was just a way to be able to do a small location that we didn't have to create an entire town for, but we definitely wanted to have a Max and Eugene story. And Ricky has said in the past that, that story definitely went through a few different iterations, and, these things are very organic. These scripts are very organic. They grow, they shrink over time. Sometimes they can, we've had a few scripts that just go on the shelf because they're just either we just can't make them. It's just too big, or a lot of times, not to get too off topic, but a lot of times our seasons are very thematic, right? So we have very specific things that we want to say with our episodes that are specific to where they are in the season. And if we have an episode that just is outside of theme or something that we've said in the past, we all look at each other and like, what, I think we said this. I think we already made our statement about this certain thing. So let's either change it, or let's not do it, or let's evolve it. Do we really care about this thing? So it's not as easy as like, oh, let's do this and we go forward on it. A lot of times in outline form or script form, these things change a lot along the way. And I give a ton of credit to Jace Ricky and his writing team for adjusting along the way. He has an amazing team of writers who, really put up with a lot from me and Ben. And, we're very particular. We're very specific about the types of stories that we want to tell. And they have been so great about understanding that and delivering.
Very cool. So I was noticing on Twitter, there was a lot of conversation between you and Anna Lencioni about the process behind animating a song. Would you mind going into that? Would you mind going into that into more depth?
Not at all. I would love it.
Yeah, because you were talking about having the musicians play to a specific board, and she had commented on Zachary Levi ad-libbing a line based on a drawing she did. So, what is the process of animating a song?
Yeah, songs are extremely difficult to pull off in that way in television because you don't have a lot of back and forth. It's very linear. You do the song, you do the boards, you do the record, and then you do the animation. It's very linear. You have a very specific line of production that has to be done in television, but typically, like in features, you would go back and forth, and you would have the music, and then you would do some animation, and you go back and forth, and you can, lift it with whatever be music or and then there's a music piece, and then you hit it with some animation. It's kind of back and forth because you have more time, but in television, it's much more the restrictions are very tight. Because, Alan Menken, who's writing this song in New York, is writing this song in a vacuum. Like, he doesn't see any storyboards. He just has a script in front of him and a launch from me about what conceptually the song should be. So he's just writing a song, again, like just in this very broad vacuum of a scenario. But when Anna gets it, and again, Anna is boarding to the way we do the songs is Alan Menken will actually record the songs himself, so we actually hear his voice instead of Mandy or Zach or Eden or James. We hear him instead. So again, it's really difficult to kind of see the end product through the process. And she just did an amazing job of really making that, we launched her that we really wanted to make this thing just a visual feast. We wanted to have a lot of fun with it. And it was kind of one of the first songs she'd ever done. And she really did an amazing job of keeping it fun, keeping it visually colorful. She didn't really do a whole lot of color in her boards, but we knew, with roses being thrown in and with this little snow sequence, she knew that she could play with the designs that we had already come up with, because again, we didn't want to do a ton of redesign for the song in terms of costumes, but she knew that she could do like the birds and the winter outfits, so she had some of that stuff to play with. But then beyond that, so once she's done with the boards, then we take that and you guys saw the horn section. We go to that was actually recorded at Capitol Records in Hollywood, the big round white building in Hollywood, which is an amazing place. But we're down there, and I have the arranger with me, and I'm the guy who takes the music, and he takes Alan's raw kind of music that he writes, but then arranges it for horns and for clarinet and flute and for drums and guitar and piano and all the different instruments. He puts those where they need to be. And so he and I were sitting and discussing the song, and I was talking to him about, all these different little fun bits of animation that we were going to do. But again, the animation wasn't done, so he can't look at a screen and see actual animation. He's looking at the storyboards and having to understand where something is going to happen. So because he wasn't as intimately involved with the process, I had to walk him through what some of the intentions were, and I knew Anna wanted some specific little bits of animation here and there, and so I said, okay, that beat right there, I want a big pow with the horns or the trumpets, or when we do a little flutter with the flutes or the clarinets, can there be there's little, whether it be the birds or something. It's always trying to support the visuals with music, and it's just difficult because you don't have a fully realized version of the visuals to be able to play off of. So it was difficult, but we did a bunch of them. And even then, once we were done animating and putting everything together. It was a matter of going back and having little bits of music added after the animation was done. So like a good example is when the hats are the circles that Lance and Eugene are in come off the walls and move around. Well, if you listen really closely, there's a little drum fill there, but that drum fill wasn't there when we recorded it at Capitol. Mercury animated that, so we had to go back and then add a little drum fill to make sure that looked and hit the animation. So it's a complex animation. It's just this super long process that takes a lot of time, and
we had no idea.
you try and make it. You try and keep it. You try and make it seem like it's a very off the cuff. Whether it be a performance or a bit of music, and you kind of try and make it seem as organic as possible. But these things take, we're talking about years.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, what? I just came up with that like 5 minutes ago.
Right. Hopefully, if we do our jobs right, everything seems like it's all just done right there. But it's a very, very difficult process.
Okay, so before we get into the specific online questions that we got, we have the big question that so many people are asking. And again, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to or are incapable of.
I wonder what this question is going to be.
When is Varian coming back?
So here's what I'm going to say about the Varian question, because it keeps coming up a lot, and I appreciate everybody's passion for it, and I love that people discuss him, and it just means that we did our job right with him. But here's my answer to that. The episode that aired on Sunday was an amazing episode. I think we can all agree that everybody did their jobs to really deliver a beautiful episode. And I think, my reaction is these beautiful episodes are what's happening while you're waiting for Varian to come back. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you're looking forward to something, and hopefully I just don't want people to miss a beautiful show while they're waiting or complaining about a lack of Varian. I can't speak to whether or when he's going to be back on any level. I will just say, just enjoy this great show. Like, there's a beautiful narrative, and there's great characters that are right there in front of you while you're waiting for this other character. And I just hope people don't lose the importance and the beauty of the episodes that we are giving people while they're sitting, tapping their toe, waiting for something else to happen. I have two amazing daughters. You guys know Ariana and Catalina, and sometimes the fear is that, my wife and I keep saying, when they were babies, like, oh, I can't wait till they walk, and I can't wait till they get into first grade, and I can't wait for them to get into high school. And, at the same time, they're right there in front of us. You know what I mean? Like, they're growing up, and they're doing special things while we're waiting for them to get into college. And it's like, how about we just enjoy the beauty and the fun and the adventure of the show that is right there, that we're delivering and working hard. Everybody's working so hard to deliver this beauty.
I love
show.
it.
I gotta give you so many.
I love it.
So many claps. Oh my god.
Yeah, you get so many claps for that, because it's basically like our answer, but not like have the knowledge of when things are going to happen. But I mean, there has been so many situations where people wonder where Varian is, and I'm like, if you're watching the show for Varian, you're missing the show.
That's what I mean. I think I just feel like it's kind of it's tough, because I appreciate the love for him, and again, like, it just means that we did our job really well, and I love him just as much as everybody else does. But at the same time, like, there's a reverse incantation in the world now.
Exactly.
Puzzle can burn and possibly kill people, and you guys are all worried about Varian. He's the first princess who could murder someone. Well, not technically, but anyways.
I mean, let's face it, Mulan is the first princess who murdered someone. But
I know. I thought of it as it was coming out of my mouth. But anyways,
yeah. So, okay, very good. I am personally
That's my answer. I love him too.
With that answer.
I love him too, but Cassandra got some armor.
Exactly. Yes.
Be worried about her
Calm
arm,
down.
man. Come on.
Varian would appreciate that. Appreciate it, people.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the questions from the fans. Sidekick Joey on Tumblr has said, I've noticed that Eugene is a lot goofier in the series versus the movie. Is this because he's more comfortable now where he is and can drop the rough and sly rogue act, or is there something done to balance out the show with more lightheartedness or something along that lines?
Well, listen, I just think the thing with Eugene is that we just have more time with him. I mean, I think, if you're looking at it that way, yeah, I think you can see him being goofy, but I think his goofy nature has always been a part of who certainly Flynn Rider was, and ultimately probably more a part of who Eugene really is. And, I always saw Eugene being a big part of who Zach is. Mm-hmm. And Zach is a big goofball, and Zach likes to laugh. And,
yes, he is.
and it would, I just feel like it would be doing him a little bit of a disservice if we didn't play to the fun comedy that Zach naturally is, and the fun that he brings to his characters. Zach and I will go back and forth on a line, and there'll be times when there's a line that I don't think is very funny, and then Zach will either give his version of it, or he'll mix it. He'll give me another take, and he'll come up with something, and it's really funny. And what am I not going to put that in the show? Mm-hmm. Like, I know he's a little bit silly, but I think he's really appealing. I like
that from us,
guy.
Chris?
Of course not. I want to give you guys all the fun that I think that you guys deserve. So I hope you enjoy it. Yes. But that's not to say that he's not romantic, right? He's a romantic guy.
Totally is.
And he's heroic. I don't think we've sacrificed any of his sincerity in the show. He likes to have a good laugh, and he is there for a good little bit of entertainment. But I don't think we've sacrificed a good amount of his, certainly his love for Rapunzel and his loyalty towards the kingdom and the king and queen. I think that's all been not only supported but strengthened.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here, but
hopefully that's a satisfactory answer.
From Goddess of Springtime on Tumblr, we have, what has been your favorite episode that has aired so far, and why?
My favorite episode, well, certainly this last one was one that I was really hoping and waiting for the world to see, and I remember on Saturday night before it kind of hit the world, I kind of got deathly sober and looked at my wife and I said, Janelle, what did I do? And I was like, I don't know if this is going to go over well. I was really we did it all kind of in a vacuum, and it all, we all looked at each other and we're like, yeah, this is going to be great. And then just on Saturday night, it all rushed through my head of her with the black eyes and the incantation and the song and the hand and all that stuff came washing over me really quickly. And I was like, oh man, I hope this goes over well.
Awesome.
What did I do? But again, the same thing with the tower. These are all things that I feel in the story and in the character had to be done. A lot of this stuff, these aren't things that are negotiable. These are things that are necessary for this character to move forward in her life, in her evolution as a character. It would be very easy for us to just keep her in the same place, like most shows do. But we were very dedicated to pushing the envelope, and I think this last episode was a great example of that.
Very good. On a related subject, and you've already touched on this a little bit, but Janice on Twitter asked, what does it feel like to have the entire fandom lose their collective minds over the latest episode?
Well, it was a little bit of a relief, of course, because again, I was so nervous. I was like, man, I'm going to get killed on
either everyone's going to be like, yay, or everyone's going to be like,
what did you do?
What did you do? Yeah. So to see the feedback from everybody, it was it was a very big relief to see of course, the fan art and the reactions and the reviews. It's a giant relief to know that, like, because we don't take this lightly. Of course, you guys know that this is it's very real to a lot of people, and this story is very important to a lot of people, and it's very important to me as well. And I'm just doing what I feel is right for this character, and not everybody can feel the same way. I'm sure there's a lot of people that were maybe upset with how we treated that, but I'm very sensitive to the things that we either do with the characters or don't do with them. And I was very happy that people took it as well as they did.
My niece was very scared. She was very worried about Rapunzel. She's happy that she's back to her blonde hair. But
I showed that to
she was worried.
I showed that scene to one of my coworkers this morning, and he was like, "This is a show for children." And I'm like, it went Gravity Falls level so quick. They're like,
and I still
7 in the morning, and it's like, we're terrifying children.
Yeah, I'm still questioning. I'm like, do they not watch the episodes before they decide what is a good time slot for this show? I mean, you would think. Yeah,
that's a whole different subject that I will not comment on. But I will say, fair. This has been a tradition in Disney, a Disney tradition since Snow White. I mean, You look at Snow White and tell me that is not, kind of a horrific moment. When we see the evil queen. There's so many moments through Disney feature history that. And again, you look at things like just like the Haunted Mansion, like you can't have the fun without a little bit of it. Like a roller coaster just isn't a train that goes around in circles. You don't get on a roller coaster because you think it's going to be 100% safe. You get on there for the thrill, and you get on there for the fear, and you know that things are going to be okay. And that's part of life. If life was super 100% safe, it would be really boring. And it's those stakes and it's those dangers that make the decisions that we have to deal with in our lives worth it, right? And certainly putting people that you love in the middle of these decisions, and Rapunzel has certainly had to make some very epic decisions in her life, and a lot of times they have really epic consequences. But that's not to say that that's not what happens in real people's lives, and we want to be able to reflect that.
Very cool. JC on Tumblr asks, are the black rocks a metaphor for the spikes or thorns in the original Rapunzel fairy tale?
No. No.
That was quick.
But I will say that the spikes came from just in my own, when I was conceptualizing the show, I looked at, we knew we were going to have this other drop. The other movie started, the original film started with this sun drop, and out of this sun drop came this very delicate, beautiful flower. And so I just looked at that and I said, well, I just needed something that was kind of the opposite of that. And I looked at, we did a lot of research into different kinds of rocks, and we ultimately, I just kept looking at the flower, at the original sunflower, and just looking at how delicate and how soft it looked, and how kind of appealing it was, and it was beautiful, and it was very approachable, and I wanted to create something that was just the direct opposite, something that was sharp and dark and unbreakable. Is as many opposites to that flower that I could come up with is what ultimately fed the design of the rocks.
Very cool.
Cool.
Okay. Megan Berry on Twitter asks, which character do you relate to the most and why?
Do I relate? Hopefully there's a little bit of me in all of the characters, right? But I think I have the most, you asked Zach a different question, but I have the most fun writing for Eugene and kind of his fun comebacks. And I'm also like very, I usually bring a lot of the heart to the stories, and I'm always asking a lot of the heart questions. And I think that Eugene is a fun-loving guy, but again is very sincere at heart. So I see a lot of myself in his sense of humor, but also his dedication and his heart.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Celeste Leanne on Tumblr asks, where did the inspiration for Ruthless Ruth come from?
So again, a lot of times the characters, obviously what happens in the show is oftentimes if you have a question like that, a lot of times the quickest way to your own answer is understanding what's happening with Rapunzel. Mm-hmm. So what we were doing with Rapunzel at the time was grappling with her inner voice telling her what the truth of the matter was that someday she was going to have to leave this kingdom, and she wasn't listening to herself. So we wanted to have a character that was telling her to listen to herself, or listen up, right? So we wanted to have a character that was grappling with that same issue. So Ruth came out of the idea that, you know, the Duckling pub originally had this female owner in the beginning. We heard little stories about that from the making of the film, and we just kind of ran with that and had the concept that there was this character that didn't pursue her dreams. She kept them bottled up. And that was what Rapunzel was sort of going through. And again, you get at the end when she's like, you might want to listen to your own advice. And that's when she goes back and she's about to tell her father, like, I'm going to do this, but then realizes that he's such a soft, hurt heart that she didn't have the heart to break it right there in front of him. So she took some time, but that's where that character came from. I'll give you a little bit of behind the scenes on that. The colors of her lair inside Ruthless Ruth's lair, where we see the piano with the candles, that specific location, the color was taken directly from an album called it was a Disneyland album that I had when I was a kid. It was called The Spooky Sounds of the Haunted House.
I know that album.
And it traumatized me as a kid. I think I was about 7 years old. My brother locked me in a closet and played that on full blast, and I just lost my mind. And I still own it to this day. I have it in my possession because it was it traumatized me so much. But I had Alan Bodner. The cover of that album is this just super scary blue mansion with stuff blowing in the wind. And I took it in and I showed Alan. And I go, that's the blue that I want for that
Traumatize me again.
Traumatized me. I told my brother about it. He got a big laugh out of that. But so visually, and then Danielle Brooks is such an amazing actress that we pulled her design. We looked at her for Ruth's design as well. She was such a pleasure to work with and such an amazing voice as well.
Jack Think on Tumblr asks, because Rapunzel and Eugene had a cameo in Frozen, a lot of people are convinced that the two movies are canonically existing in the same universe. Do you agree or disagree with this?
Wow, you guys are really rolling out the big ones.
Yep. Oh, yeah. We're not messing around here on Tangled Talk.
The big serious questions. Hey, listen, one of my good friends, Chris Buck, who co-directed Frozen, has spoken on this. And the fun thing about fan theories is that fan theories are allowed to just be, and I don't necessarily want to sit here and say one way or another, because I feel like people have fun in their own coming up with their theories, and that's part of the fun of any fan theory, whether it be Star Wars or Marvel or Disney things. And if people want to believe that they were there because of some shipwreck or whatever the story is, I think that's super fun, and I wouldn't ever tell anybody to not think that. So I won't say one way or another to discourage any super fun fan theories, because I think Chris had it right on the nose when he said that.
Totally fair.
Absolutely. Okay, Alchemy All Day Every Day on Tumblr asks, what was the inspiration behind developing new recurring characters and keeping the old ones in character?
Wow, it's a super great question, because it was a huge challenge. Of course, it was, with the pressure of being able to get Zach and Mandy back onto the show, it was incredibly important for us to be able to build this world out on the same level that Zach and Mandy had left the feature. So it was incredibly important to the world to not only cast incredibly talented performers in these roles, but also give them incredibly important roles in their lives. So I think ultimately all of these characters will have a very big impact on both Rapunzel and Eugene's lives, and casting them with such amazing performers, and having them be able to, when you hear Eden and Mandy next to each other, they're both so different. Mandy sounds nothing like Eden, and Eden sounds nothing like Mandy, but they both have a weight and an experience and a presence to their voice that is particular. And it was a challenge it was a huge challenge to be able to cast an actress and come up with a character that could hold their own against, obviously a character that is so beloved to so many people.
Let's see. We have from B Stormhands on Tumblr, the world building is amazing, but to me it looks like the world is entering a dark age. Is that intentional?
I don't know if the world is entering a dark age. I certainly believe that. The Tangled world is very colorful, and we definitely have. There have been times in the first season where we went dark, and Alan Bodner, who is our art director on our show, certainly has free reign to kind of light this thing however he wants. Thematically, we certainly are growing these characters in different directions, but I don't think that's going to be a big sacrifice in the color of the show. I think we'll be able to get depth in the show with it still being beautiful colors and having just as many gorgeous locations.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I hope that makes
sense. That does.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Jive Peaches on Tumblr asked, and you touched on this a little earlier, what is it like working with Disney songwriters?
Oh my goodness. You mean the greatest songwriters?
Yeah, them. Those ones.
Century? You mean 8-time Academy Award winning songwriter Alan Menken?
Yeah.
Yeah, him,
well,
that guy.
Just him, right? It's a huge honor to be able to create more songs for this world and for these performers. Again, being able to write songs for somebody as epically talented as Jeremy Jordan and James Monroe Iglehart. These guys are they're everybody across the board is just are so talented, and being able to bring that level of talent and that level of ability to a Disney Channel show is a huge honor. We don't take it lightly. I take these songs very seriously, and so does Alan, and so does Glenn Slater, who writes our lyrics. And Glenn has been so great on the show to be able to take notes, and he's very plugged into what these characters are going through, and being able to go back and forth with him, and certainly from a story standpoint, being able to grow these characters has been an incredible honor. So it's a little, I won't lie, it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes because you don't want to miss an opportunity in a song. You want to make sure that the song is what it needs to be for the moment, and sometimes Alan doesn't have that perspective because, again, he's in New York and we're out here in California, so there's a little bit of disconnect in there. But he's always been an amazing collaborator, and he's never once shied away from taking a note or giving me some insight on something. It's been an amazing honor.
Very good. All Things Disney on Tumblr asks, what is your favorite thing about Eugene and Rapunzel's relationship?
I think that since the beginning, the thing that I admire the most about the both of them is that, this isn't, Eugene always has her back. Mm-hmm. He understands that this is not his journey. He's there to, he's on the journey, but, at the end of the day, this is her thing, and he's so supportive of her, and she's so gracious about that, and they respect each other so much. They take each other into consideration constantly, and they don't take each other for granted. I think, they're a great couple from the standpoint that sometimes they can lose their patience with each other, but it's a very realistic relationship, and I think they have a lot of patience with each other.
Very good. Erica Miller on Twitter, she had a couple different questions. The first one is, how much fun do you have in the recording booth when you're writing room and everywhere while you're working on this show?
Oh, man, I just got out of a recording session today with Mandy, and we had a great time.
Yay!
I have so much fun. She was in a great mood. We always have a fun time in the recording booth. Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who is our voice director, and I, we sit next to each other. I don't know if you guys have seen pictures of some of the recordings, but her and I sit next to each other in the booth. And while we're recording, and we always lovingly say that we're going to start our own morning drive radio show, because we are always cracking jokes back and forth, and Zach and Mary go back and forth with they do dueling accents and dueling movie quotes.
No.
I have to sit there and be like, guys, would you snap out of it, please? Like, we got to keep moving. And sometimes, James and I will be talking about some nerdy Star Wars thing, and Mary will have to be like, guys, we have to get work done. James Monroe Eichelhart, I don't know if you guys know much about him, but he is a gigantic nerd. He is the biggest nerd I know.
Awesome.
Oh my god,
he is
yeah,
the
I know
best.
that.
He just got done writing a Spider-Man, an episode.
Yes! Oh my god.
He's just
cool.
a gigantic, just a giant nerd. He's just so nerdy, and I love him. And I wanted him to ask his mom if by any chance she has a long lost son, because I swear that we are related. We're brothers. Whenever we get together,
oh my gosh. You're brothers with him, like Lance and Eugene are brothers.
Exactly. Exactly. But then again, like Zach and I are really close too. Again, Zach was really protective and very, at arm's length in the beginning. Who are you? How are you having an opinion about these characters? Mm-hmm. But over the years, we've just again become these fun. He's like a big brother to me, even though he's younger than me. I look up taller than me, and he's so much better looking than me.
He is taller. Oh my gosh, he's so tall.
Boy.
He is so tall. Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it was fun to see him like transform into Shazam, because like before he got the role, he looked like chopsticks with a head on top. And then when he got the role of Shazam, he showed up. He was away for a long time, and then he showed up to the studio, and I go, Zach, you grew a neck.
Oh my goodness!
And of course, he grew more than a neck. I mean, he's huge now, but before that, he was this little guy, and now he's just like this. His neck is just this massive thing now, and I always make fun of him for that. But yeah, it's like a big family, whether it be the music people or the board team or the even our support team. It's a big family. We have a great time making the show.
Oh, okay. And her next question was, what has been the most emotional scene or episode for you in the show so far?
So the most emotional. Listen, there's been a lot. I'm not gonna
I feel you.
Yep.
Yeah, we're there with you.
There have been some doozies on the show for sure. And I'm usually. I've kind of gone through the emotional journey along the way of writing these things. So by the time we're recording, I'm a little more offline, so I can kind of like listen to the performance and make sure we get the right recording and we pick the right take. So my brain is oftentimes, if you ever see pictures of behind the scenes of us recording, you can always see that my head is straight down. And what I'm doing is I'm concentrating on the words, and I'm trying to focus. I hardly ever look at the actor because I'm trying to imagine that being animated. So I'm usually very offline. So the emotional stuff, you know, I've already gone through when we go to writing, but there was one time in particular that I can remember being like, oh crap, that is a thing. And it was when we had done, I think we had done 7 or 8 takes of Varian coming into the house, seeing Kieran.
Oh my god!
And Jeremy, we had probably done about 8 takes of it, and Jeremy says, I have another one. And we said, okay, let's do it again. And that's when he said, Daddy.
Oh.
And I about lost it.
Yep.
And if I had not yelled out, that's a take, I probably would have broken down. But it was so online for me. Again, like I was right there knowing, because in my brain I can see the storyboards. I know what's happening. I know what the camera, I know where we're coming from. I know where we're going to. So I'm kind of just trying to get the performance. But it's times like that when, again, either it's Zach or Jeremy or whoever gives us a little improv, and that was completely Jeremy. That was Jeremy's read. We didn't write that. He just did it naturally, and I said that is for sure the take. We didn't record it any other time like that. So that was probably the most emotional that I got because I just wasn't expecting it.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Okay, this phenomenon I got on Tumblr today says, in your opinion, does the Smolder actually work on women? I mean, obviously it doesn't work on Rapunzel, but how about others?
Listen, I think he's had some success with it. I don't think
he swooned that crab.
I don't think he would have. No. I definitely think that thing has some juice to it. I definitely think Flynn had a lot of success with it in one way or another. For him to kind of be so bold with it, I think he's got that thing in his side pocket ready to go in case he needs it. I think that's given some.
It's just broken now. That's the problem.
I have a
What's that?
I said it's just broken now. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I just think that Rapunzel is impervious to it. It worked on the. It worked on the crab, so I think there's there's some validity to it.
Did it work on Stallion in your opinion?
Oh.
Did it work on Stallion? I don't think it did. I think Stallion was probably a little more street smart, and again, I think Stallion probably was there when he was creating it. I think she was probably. I think they were. In my head, they've been friends for a long time. I always saw the three of them as being kind of like the Fagin kids, Oliver Twist and these kids that kind of were brought up in this bad era together. And so I feel like the three of them, Eugene, Lance, and Stallion, kind of grew up together. So I feel like the Smolder came along. I don't know. I don't have a story specific, but I feel like it's been around for a while. So I think she kind of was wise to his baloney.
So she got to see the early versions of the Smolder with teenage Eugene. Like, I would kill to be in her place. That's amazing.
Oh my god.
Before he named it. Okay, we have Not Getting Away with It this time on Tumblr asks, what was the inspiration behind the Day of Hearts, specifically its origin?
Well, we wanted to obviously have we wanted to have obviously like a Valentine's Day, but we didn't want to call it Valentine's Day just because it was, it's a fairy tale land. We wanted to give it its own name, and we wanted to be able to put Cassandra in a situation where she had to kind of deal with all of these people being flutterily in love and having to be around this all the time, and yet having this little secret relationship that she was having. So it just seemed like the right thing to have, and then being able to have the mythology of the book, the Day of Hearts book, and what all that meant was fun, because it wasn't just a day of love; it actually represented a piece of history in the kingdom.
Very cool. And our final question is from Kai Jane on Tumblr. And it is, are there any concepts you have scrapped so far that you can share with us, such as cut gags or ideas or things that just didn't work out?
Like I said before, there have been some scripts that we scrapped. But by and large, it is such a lean show. I was saying before that everything that we everything that we have on the show, we put on the screen. I mean, there's very little fat on the show. Like whatever we come up with or design or write typically is going to find its way onto the screen. There's not a whole lot of extraneous designing or writing, because our schedule is so tight. It's amazing that the show gets made the way that it does without having to do too many jokes or sequences that don't make it onto the screen. Now, there definitely have been sequences, none that really necessarily come to mind, that had to be cut for time. Trying to think if there's anything... I can't think of anything specifically that we cut, but I know in the past we've had episodes that have gone like 5 minutes, not 5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes over what our time is, and that is just a ton to have to go into an episode and cut 4 minutes out of an episode. It's really difficult, because you try and write for the parameters of the show, and again, in the episodes where we have songs, you have to take into consideration that those songs are going to be a minute and a half, 2 minutes long, so that in the script it just says song goes here. but you have to take into consideration that Alan has to write a song, and we don't know if it's going to be a minute and 15 seconds, a minute 45 seconds, and then once we get the song, then it becomes editing that in. So there have been times where things get on the cutting room floor, but not a ton that I can even think of.
That's very cool.
That's a terrible answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yes, but I don't know.
Wouldn't you like to know?
Thanks very much for joining us tonight, Chris. This has been a lot of fun to have you on here.
Yeah. I love coming on. If you guys ever want me, I think we should probably do it again once we have another tent pole. I know you guys do these every week, and I love listening to your show, and I will listen to this one as well. But let's do it again, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more fun stuff to talk about. So
very cool. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that's our show for this evening, folks. Thanks very much for tuning in and listening. Once again, we have a lot more platforms that we are available to listen to on. If you don't feel like having a YouTube channel open, or if you don't want to listen to this in Tumblr, you can catch us on a lot of different areas. Check the notes of this podcast, and you'll see the links to all of our various locations. Thanks again very much for listening, and thanks again to Chris for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.